Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and I'm talking astrology. On this video, I'm going to be talking about Jupiter in Taurus 2023. This planet enters the sign on the 16th of May and it moves all the way through it with a period in retrograde motion where it goes back over old ground but is still in Taurus right through until the middle of May 2024. So a pretty long cycle. So I'm going to get right into it. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is Jupiter. In many ways, you can think of the planets as a kind of family of planets. We belong in the solar system and every single planet there has a character. And when we think about a family itself, we have the stern disciplinarian, probably patriarch figure. Yes, I'm talking about Saturn. And we have the jolly uncle, and the jolly uncle is Jupiter. This planet we get good cheer from. We get even the word jovial from Jupiter, because by Jove, by Jupiter, that's where we get the word jovial from. And joy, all these absolutely fabulous words that we all really, really enjoy. So Jupiter is the good guy, our good news planet. Of course, there's a darker side, and I'm going to mention that in a minute. Yes, let's talk first of all about Jupiter in myth. Jupiter was indeed the king of the gods, and as such ruled sometimes with magnanimity and sometimes was a little bit, well, not the nicest person in the planetary family, shall we say, or the mythological family. He was renowned for his temper and throwing thunderbolts around the place when he was displeased. So he could be very, very destructive as well. And we always have to remember with anything astrological, and certainly all the planets, they have a good side, so to speak, and a bad side. And we have to take everything into consideration. There's no good thing as bad, 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 and there's no such thing as good, good, good. But we have to get our jollies from somewhere, and the planet we get our jollies from is planet Jupiter. Now, Jupiter spends roughly 12 months in each sign of the zodiac, and therefore does a kind of complete circuit of the zodiac in 12 years. It's a 12-year cycle. And where Jupiter is in your chart represents an area in which we do things, or things happen that tend to be fortunate for us. And they certainly show us an area of great growth, because indeed Jupiter's keywords are growth, expansion. But also, downside of that, we get inflation. So as much as Jupiter grows things that we all enjoy, success, financial growth, all sorts of things in our lives getting bigger and better, it can also inflate problems. And we always have to note that as we look at Jupiter moving around our charts, where it positions itself in transit, in progression, and of course also where it is in the first place. How well placed your Jupiter is natally when you were born. The minute Jupiter comes round and repeats itself, gets back to base one, then everything that Jupiter represents in your natal chart is triggered. So all its aspects and its position come into play when Jupiter returns to its original place. And of course, for some of you out there, that's exactly what is happening. You were born with Jupiter in Taurus, and it's now come round back to its original place again. So it's a kind of rebooting of all good Jupiter things and all bad Jupiter things as well. There's also another group with Jupiter in Scorpio. Natally, if you were born with Jupiter in Scorpio, you are now at Jupiter's halfway position. So halfway round its circle of the zodiac, Jupiter opposition Jupiter, you're at a point of evaluation. You're sort of seeing what's kind of grown, what you want to keep going, and what really has fizzled out or is out of control and not going anywhere. And we can do this consciously by really looking at aspects of our lives, especially those things that were begun 6 years ago, if you have Jupiter in Scorpio, that is, and seeing what we began at that time and where it's got to, and whether we need to tone it down, get rid of it, or we need to put more energy, time, money, whatever is, is correct, appropriate, into it to continue the cycle until it comes back to its natal position. Coming back to Jupiter in Taurus, if you've got Jupiter in Taurus, and I will be actually looking at this shortly when we go sign by sign, it isn't exactly a time of renewal, but it is a period of rebooting your optimism. And I'll sort that out. I'll talk about it a bit more when I get round to it. Other things that are important about Jupiter's journey through Taurus is that the last time it journeyed through Taurus was in or between June 2011 to June of 2012. We can also go back further and we can look at July 1999 through to June of the year 2000. And 12 years before that, we're looking at March 1988 to July of 1988, a short period, because after July, it turned retrograde, went back into Aries, came back into Taurus in December 88, and was out by March of 1989. So those are good reference points for you. You need to perhaps check back in those years and see what patterns you can find playing in those years. There's bound to be a repeating pattern. It's not exactly the same events that happened 12 years before or 12 years before that. It's not a repetition of the events. What you're looking for really are patterns that are repeating, and you should be illuminated by looking back at those times. Now, if I go back to the most recent time when Jupiter was in Taurus, and that's the 2011 period through to 2012, June of 2012, there were some significant things. We had the second wave of the Egyptian revolution. That was really, really important and changed things big time for that neck of the woods. We also, during that time, experienced or had the Japanese earthquake and tsunami, which was a massive, massive thing. And that's the thing about Jupiter. Everything is always massive with Jupiter. There's nothing small. It's large, it's grand, it's joyous, it's abundant, and it can be OTT, over the top. Also, for your information, the Game of Thrones previewed. It had its premiere run, and of course you know how fantastic Game of Thrones became, how fantastic it continues to be, and what careers it launched and what sorts of things it launched, a complete set of industries, and it was big. Also, when I think about Jupiter, which is very much a planet of finances, it's a planet of justice as well. We need to think about law, justice, judgment. But we're looking at Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, a very financial sign, a material sign in terms of material assets. So during the time Jupiter was in Taurus, in fact, on August the 8th of 2011, there was what was known as Black Monday. And the reason for that in the financial markets was that on the Friday before, the S&P had, in regard to the debt, had downgraded the US, downgraded it from AAA, which was like no risk, to AA, which was some risk. And that really shook the markets. It shook, obviously, the US economy, and it shook the global markets. And I think we need to look at that in terms as well. And in fact, when we think about it, at the time I'm recording this, which is the 12th of May, At the moment, there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen with the debt ceiling in the USA. The Republicans wanting more fiscal discipline and the Democrats wishing to expand or, increase it so that it will accommodate all the things that need to be paid and the things that need to be done. So there's a bit of a stalemate there at the moment, and the fears are if the days come and the debt cannot be repaid, so to speak, then global chaos will ensue. Of course, they're going to come to some kind of agreement because that cannot be allowed to happen. But then you say things will never happen, and sure enough, they do. But what I'm pointing out here is the kind of general climate and the echoes and patterns that repeat when we get Jupiter in Taurus for the second time. But not only is Jupiter in Taurus concerned with the things I've just mentioned in that last cycle, but also the principle of Jupiter in Taurus. It's going to expand. There are going to be incidents, developments, events, particularly in these areas, which include things to do with agriculture, things to do with gardening. It's an abundance sign, Taurus. It's things of the earth, including gardens, but it's also produce. It's also construction, it's buildings, and of course, it's finance as well. So when we think of this principle moving through the sign of Taurus, we get the idea that maybe there's great growth in these industries. They will expand like crazy. But if you've got problems in any of these areas, they're going to expand exponentially too. So let's have a look at Jupiter's entry into Taurus. I've created a chart for this for the moment Taurus enters, and then we can sort of see all the other things that are happening around that time, which are certainly going to cast an influence on the events that happen around the time of Jupiter's entry into Taurus. So let's have a look at it. So as you can see, I've set this chart from the perspective of San Francisco, California. And the reason I did that, how I like to dot around the world and have a look at different countries as a reference point in different capital cities. And why I chose San Francisco, not only because it's one of the great cities in the world, and I absolutely love San Francisco, but it's the picture of that moment that Jupiter enters Taurus is really dramatic. We can see Mars rising, Pluto setting, and there, what do we have in the middle of everything but Jupiter in that 12 o'clock position? Now, during this time, as Jupiter enters Taurus, we have Mars drawing to an opposition to Pluto. In fact, Jupiter enters Taurus on the 16th of May, and on the 21st of May, which is the Sunday, we have Mars exactly opposing Pluto. So we have a really, really powerful alignment, which is building just prior to Jupiter's entry into Taurus, and it will be with us, this particular configuration, because Jupiter isn't moving that fast and neither is Mars. So it's going to be with us right through, really, until the end of May. Now, I spent a whole video talking about this particular alignment, and I'm not going to do that again, so much as to say that the entry of Jupiter into Taurus, coming as it does with its connection to a Mars-Pluto opposition, isn't just bells and whistles. It's like a full symphony orchestra on steroids. It's loud, it's big, it's bold, it's dramatic, it's extreme. The good events are going to be absolutely OTT great, but the difficult events are going to be just as horrible. So if we continue to look at the chart here, you'll notice that Mars is at 27 degrees of Cancer, Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and in a matter of days, Mars will be crossing into Leo and opposing Pluto and squaring Jupiter, which I've just mentioned, in fact. But why I'm repeating this is that, in point of fact, this is why I mention those of you with birthdays towards the end of the cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, or with planets and points between, 27, 0 or 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, and those of you who've got 0 degrees of the fixed signs, Jupiter, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, you're going to feel this particular configuration and also be the beneficiaries of Jupiter's power as we start in the early degrees of this transit. So that's why sometimes I talk about birthdays, and then some of you get a little bit confused and you think, oh, well, what if it happens if I'm born a little earlier than that? But really the degree areas of a sign are what we're always looking for. And when we say something is angling another planet, we give it orbs or a kind of margin of effectiveness, so that between about 8 degrees, let's say, then an aspect is beginning to be felt, beginning to manifest, which is why I do these broad kind of dates here. So what you can see here, if you happen to be born with planets and points around this 27 to 29, even 25 degrees, and then the 0 degrees of fixed signs, is that this particular configuration and Jupiter's early passage through Taurus is going to be particularly noticeable for you. And with Jupiter, we get opportunity. Wherever Jupiter is transiting in your chart, whatever area, there is going to be an opportunity. But let's remember, not all opportunities come gift wrapped, so that we see them as opportunities straight away. Some of them are going to be in a very plain or even a kind of dark, subdued box, so that the events that represent the opportunity to us are not great and good events, but there the opportunity is within them. So we have to have that kind of a higher, kind of bigger perspective on our charts and on ourselves to see the opportunity that is being provided. And I'm talking especially to those of you right now who are in those birthday areas, planets and points in those particular degree areas. What you might also notice as you look at this chart is that Jupiter is near the North Node. That little omega sign is the North Node. Opposite to it is the South Node, which means Jupiter is close to the eclipse point. In fact, on April the 20th, we had a solar eclipse squaring Pluto in that very neck of the woods. So what Jupiter is doing is retracing the footsteps that we've gone earlier in late April. So both events around that mid to late April time are somehow an echo is being sounded from those events. And there may also be a strongly fated feel to what is happening in the world at this time and also in your own life. We might also notice that Mercury is close to that node position, the North Node, and this too has just gone over that eclipse position. And Mercury is all about communication. It's about messages. So any messages that are being delivered at this time, whether to us, humanity as a whole, or whether to you individually, are profound and full of what we might call destined kind of meeting. You can also see the moon, which is quite a distance from Jupiter at this time. It's in Aries. It's about 11 degrees away, so we can't consider it a moon-Jupiter conjunction at that time, although it would cross over Jupiter as we get within the next 24 hours. But it is next to Chiron up there. And Chiron always is about journeys of healing, isn't it? Journeys where we feel the pain but the pain goes towards our ultimate healing. So there may be messages coming here as well in terms of Jupiter's entry into Taurus and the surrounding astrological factors that tell us that this journey of Jupiter through Taurus also has an aura of being a healing journey, but one that's going to be very painful at times. Well, when we get into next year, 2024, Jupiter will conjoin Uranus. Now, I'm working from memory here, so I may not be exact, but it's something like the 21st of April. And that's very interesting because obviously on that day, the sun is going to be at 0 degrees of Taurus, where the eclipse was on the 20th of April this year. So I will, of course, be covering that next year, but it's something to look at in your chart, because in as much as we're looking at a Jupiter-Pluto square right now with Mars opposing it, when we get to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which is a big, important conjunction, we're also going to have another period of massive awakenings. And of course, as I say, we'll get to that when we're a little bit, nearer the actual date. So let's come back to me now again. And before I get into it, sign by sign, I think when I was talking about the alignment of Jupiter, Pluto, Mars, I talked about giving it 3 kind of keywords, Jupiter being opportunity. And for me, that's a really, really big word for Jupiter. We can throw it in with growth, expansion, inflation, opportunity. Let's add that into the list because that's what's always there with Jupiter. And I looked at Mars and Pluto and looked at the idea of Mars being courage and conflict, and looked at Pluto in terms of power and transformation. Well, I think one of the things we look at if we're trying to really understand how Jupiter works in our lives and in our charts is to make a little equation of that. And, one of the reasons I always look at astrology in the way of being prepared for what's happening to us. Well, what is the astrology indicating? How is it guiding us? Not what is it bringing to us in the way of this event and that event. Because if we embrace our astrology and we embrace the various transits that happen to us, and we really look at the ways in which we can get the best out of what's happening and look at it in the most philosophical way, as opposed to also recognizing it when we get hit with a barrage or something, how best to understand what it's teaching us, what it is that we've got to go through to get further along our life path. So when we look at Jupiter, it isn't just about great good fortune coming our way. How is this going to be expressed? Jupiter in our 2nd house, lots of money, lots of assets, buying property. No, well, it may do. But what it really means is if we put effort into it, if we put our focus into what Jupiter is encouraging us to get behind and expand, then we've got something going for us. And my little equation is effort plus Jupiter equals success, minus effort and Jupiter equals lost opportunities. And I think if you can remind yourself of this as you go through the next week, the week after that, and so on, you'll really be focusing on and, if you like, kind of resonating with the spirit of Jupiter, if you like, to enhance your life, for you to get behind your own success and growth. So let's start going through this sign by sign. Now, in recent times, because it's been a little complicated with planets in different houses forming, a configuration, a lot of you have looked at your own charts and then said, but that doesn't work. I mean, for me, even though, I've got Aries rising, Jupiter isn't in my 2nd house or, whatever we're looking at. It's actually my 1st house. Well, obviously, I can't make accommodations for all of those things. We'd be here forever. We'd be doing a video for days. So I have to kind of make things as simple as I possibly can. But if you know where Jupiter is in your chart, if you know where the transit is coming, what house it's going through, then you'll be able to listen to the relevant sign and get the full story out of that. But even if you take it just from your sun sign, I find that the cycle of the houses has a kind of story to it from the perspective of your sun sign. It is valid. And because the sun is your brand, it's so many things that are essentially you. How you come to Jupiter, how you work with Jupiter, how Jupiter resonates with you is just as important to look at where it is according to your sun sign as well. So we get two things to look at: where it actually is in your natal chart, the house it's in, and also from the perspective of the sun, because that gives you a kind of another dimension of Jupiter. And it's quite okay to have 2 points of view. I mean, we've got enough room for that, haven't we? So anyway, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with Taurus. And of course, for you, Jupiter will be coming into your sign. It's coming into your first house if you've got Jupiter rising, if you've got Taurus rising. And this is full volume. This is full volume. The first house, or your sign, is your whole person. It's you. And so to have this extraordinary, extravagant, big influence in your life makes you too larger than life. Now, hopefully that means you'll get a better kind of platform for your life. You'll feel kind of expanded as an individual, and you'll feel more kind of engaged with life and with the world, more optimistic, more confident. But of course, sometimes larger than life means, yes, maybe too much of the good stuff in life may affect your waistline. So that's always got to be watched with Jupiter. You can have too much of a good thing. So all things in moderation, those things that we know when Jupiter is in our first house, or when Jupiter is in your sun sign, then this is not a time to go overboard for things you already know are bad for you. And I also think about Jupiter, this kind of kingly presence. It is entirely possible that you will receive some kind of promotion during the period that Jupiter is moving through your first house or your sign. And because also Jupiter is a great traveler, and we look at long distance endeavors, we look at distant places and people in distant places, the urge to travel, to explore your world on a large scale, to get more out of your world. These are all good Jupiter factors as it moves through your first house, or as it is in the sign of Taurus for all Taurians. Yes, you are more likely to be successful. You are more likely to find happiness. You are more likely to be able to grow things. Whether we're talking gardens or whether we're talking an endeavor, a business, an enterprise, a relationship, growth is more likely with Jupiter in this position. But let's not forget that the problems grow with Jupiter as well. And I think you have to have a certain amount of discipline when you start to see a situation getting out of control. Have the wisdom and the self-discipline to say, you know, that's enough. This is going to end badly if I let it, get away from itself. Jupiter, again, thinking about the king of the gods here, there is a sense with Jupiter sometimes that you get too big for your boots. Self-love is good, but you don't want to overdo that. because it becomes unbearable, and that you perhaps fall into all sorts of traps of exceeding your power and exceeding your boundaries. So it's keeping a watch on all those things. If we come now to Gemini, then Jupiter is in your 12th house. So it's going to spend a year in preparation for arriving in your sign in mid-May of next year. This is a very, very important period for you. All sorts of seeds are going to be planted, whether you consciously get behind that message and you start planting seeds of one sort or another. You start learning something, acquiring something that you're going to need for when Jupiter comes into your own sign so that you can be successful with it. It's also a very spiritual area, the 12th house. And so the idea of spiritual expansion is very much present with Jupiter moving through the 12th house. So we get this feeling that your experiences in life, your external experiences, give you the opportunity for expansion of your spirit and soul, all those sort of things that we talk about and appreciate, but sometimes don't really recognize when we've taken great leaps. But something like Jupiter moving through your 12th house will make you very, very aware that you are expanding in consciousness, and that the frame of reference you have for your belief systems, your spiritual beliefs, this is now coming to you in a way that is really supporting you and sustaining you. Of course, a lot of good work can be done in this house by getting fit. You want to be match fit for when Jupiter comes into your own sign next year. And that can have a very literal expression, so that physically you start to work on your physical body, you start to work on your mental body and psychological body, getting it stronger, getting it fitter. Because when Jupiter comes into your sign, you want to take hold of those opportunities. You don't want to be wasting time, getting ready for them. You have to be ready. A lot of the things that start to grow and develop during the course of the next 12 months are going to realize their success and their importance in your life as we go through 2024, the second half of 2024. So even if occasionally you get a bit discouraged, you just think, why don't I get some applause? Why haven't I got a cheerleader here cheering me on? It's like I'm doing all this great stuff and nobody's saying I'm doing a good job. That's one of the things about the 12th house. You have to prepare to do it behind the scenes, in secret. It's about development before production. And if you have that kind of attitude to whatever it is that provokes that response, why am I not getting the applause? Why is this not making money? Why? Well, wait and see. There's more work to be done. There's more development to be done. And of course, the more we look at our experiences in life and learn from them and see what kind of higher steps we can take than the ones we are, the more we're going to be able to make use of all the things that we're preparing for. So if we come now to Cancer, then we've got Jupiter coming into the 11th house. Now, this is one of the creative areas of the horoscope. It's on the axis of what I call creativity and collaboration, because the opposite house, the 5th house, is the creative center of the horoscope. But in the 11th house, it's all about collaborating with people in order to get creative projects off the ground. It can be a wonderful area for enterprise, whether this is enterprises that you join. So with Jupiter moving through the 11th house, if you're a Cancer, it will be moving through the 11th solar house. So we're in the area of startups, for instance, whether you're the individual starting a startup or whether you are invited or want to join a startup. This is a great area to pool resources. It's all about becoming bigger and better through the group, through the collective, as opposed to the individual. And your humanitarian spirit is likely to be stirred by Jupiter. You'll want to give, whether that's giving of your time, your voluntary services, your money, whatever it is, the act of giving to help humanity is where Jupiter is strongly pointing to. And of course, what happens when we give and when we feel we are doing something for the good of others, then we feel good about ourselves too. But quite specifically in this 11th house area, it is about the collective spirit. It's about, more than you. And so it's the effectiveness of more people than you, as opposed to your solo contribution. And the more you think of the group mind, of the power of the group and all sorts of things that can be produced by the group, the more successful this Jupiter transit is going to be for you. I think too about Jupiter in the 11th house as being an area where in fact we prepare perhaps for things to be a little bit quieter when Jupiter comes into the 12th house, so that that period of seeding follows the period of building things, which we do when we're in the 11th house, the idea of collaborations being those things that happen. And I have to say, although I want to urge you to embrace Jupiter and to think about the things I'm talking about, so they're part of your consciousness, it doesn't preclude the idea that great things just happen in this area, that things that are offered to you that involve doing things with friends, doing things with like-minded kindred spirits are going to produce great results. Things like that can be offered to you. Remember, Jupiter is opportunity. So there is an opportunity for you to grow in this area of your life. I touched on friendships there, and I think friendship is another area that means a lot. 11th house friendship. And we all know that when we have good friends, when we're doing things with friends, how great it makes us feel. But what I would warn against with Jupiter in the 11th house is that a friendship is bust. You get a boom bust effect with Jupiter. And so with Jupiter in the 11th, it can be that a friendship has gone as far as it can, and it's going to bust spectacularly. And that either needs to be thought about so that it can be contained in some way, or maybe it will just happen, but you remember it when it happens. If we come to Leo, we've got Jupiter entering the 10th house of your solar chart. Leo rising, a Sun Leo, then Jupiter is going to be moving through the 10th house over the course of the next 12 months. This is an area to do with the material world. It's your platform. It's you out in the world. And in that sense, it concerns your career, if you have one, your role in life. And as I often say, what are your roles in life? Mother, husband, we have many roles, don't we? But also we have a career sometimes, and that means, we have a profession, and that also gives us our label, if you like, to other people in the world. We like to parcel people up into little pockets, don't we? We like to say, oh, she's a nurse. As if, that tells you everything about that person. And the 10th house is where we find that. So the idea of Jupiter moving in there, and what words are we looking at? We're looking at growth, we're looking at expansion, we're looking at opportunity, and of course, we're looking at inflation. So let's take the good words first and think about consciously embracing this transit of Jupiter in your 10th house and saying, this is my time to step up. This is my time to put my head above the parapet and be noticed. And we all need a certain amount of courage for that. And we all need a certain amount of luck. So we've got courage. We've got luck here. Stand up. Be a tall poppy. Sometimes we want people to invite us to the party. We want someone to say, we would like to invite you to become president of the company. Sometimes we have to put ourselves forward. We have to say, you know what, I think I could run this company really well. And then people look at us and say, you know what, I think maybe you can. So it's embracing your Jupiter and recognizing that the opportunity is there for you to step up. And it doesn't mean getting too big for your boots. Remember, I talked about that with Jupiter in your first house, Jupiter in Taurus, as a sun Taurus. Don't get too big for your boots. There is a safe line between confidence and optimism and getting just over the top and being unbearable. And the boom bust factor also must be taken into consideration. We can also look at improvements generally with your material world. So if things have been a little tight and you've felt, you know, your material comforts have been minimal, they start to grow, which means, of course, you probably make more money or there's more money at your disposal. It's also that your job conditions improve, so that if there have been difficulties within the job that you're already doing, they tend to ease. The good times come in as opposed to the bad times. But I have to say, remember, Jupiter is power as well. You know, King of the Gods, Jupiter, you can run into power situations whereby other people are exerting their power over you and crushing you. And of course, you'll notice this when it happens to you. What you need to do in that circumstance is to remember that you still have power. You always have power. It's just recognizing where your power is and how best to use it against people who are using their power to control you. And I think perhaps that's probably the most important message that I have for you in regard to Jupiter in the 10th house, Sun Leos looking at their solar house number 10 with Jupiter moving through it. If we come now to Virgo, Jupiter is in its own home territory. Jupiter is moving through the 9th house. And of course, with the 9th house, we've got overseas travel, we've got academia, we've got all sorts of things to do with the law. And we think of Jupiter both as this great and good influence, but also of exacerbating things that are already difficult. So if you've already got a difficult court case going, there are two ways to look at this Jupiter transit. Either it's going to come out successfully for you, there's going to be a happy ending here, or the problems and the cost is going to escalate. So my advice to you, if this is resonating with your life right now, you're either Virgo rising or you're a Sun Virgo, Jupiter in your 9th, whatever way you want to look at it, then you have to be able to say, there's a point at which I'm going to have to cut this off because it's going to spiral out of control. The other thing about Jupiter in the 9th house, this is what I call one of the seeking houses of the Zodiac, or the Zodiac circle, so that we're looking at the seeking of wisdom, the getting of wisdom, if you like. So it often is a time when you take up a really important study course. You want to expand your understanding of something. You want to expand your skill sets. You want to get really more knowledgeable about maybe one specific thing, or it could be more knowledgeable generally. But this idea of the big wide world in the 9th house means that your world is expanding. Your world, as well as the world you live in the sense of the countries surrounding you and you wanting to explore. The spirit of adventure is very alive and well with Jupiter moving through this 9th house. And I think Virgo as a sign, whether you've got Virgo rising or whether you are a Sun Virgo, there is a sense sometimes that you overanalyze things, you overthink it. And sometimes you think, oh, you're so self-deprecating. It's like, oh, no, I don't think I should go there. No, I don't think that's for me. No, I'd rather wait to be asked. But in fact, really, with Jupiter here, then you really have to, go from your own belief, your own self-belief, your own desire to conquer, your own desire to see more of the world, to have a bigger field in which to operate in, and to really look further than the end of your nose for fulfillment and success. The world is a big place, Virgo. You can have a bigger world than the one you're in. And that's what Jupiter is reminding you of as it moves through the 9th house. If we come to Libra, then Jupiter is moving through the 8th house. And this is one of the financial areas of the horoscope. And it's not just how you earn money and how you get money. It's a little bit more complicated than that, the 8th house. This is really about other people's money. So it can be monies coming to you from settlements and inheritances. So we could look at Jupiter moving through the 8th house and go, yippee, I'm going to get a big settlement. Oh, goodness, I'm going to get an inheritance. I'm going to win the lottery. Money is coming to me. Well, it might, and that would be a wonderful thing. But what else does it mean that you can really embrace and activate in your life? Well, it's about other people. It's about your financial arrangements with other people. And we all have arrangements, well, most of us do, with banks, with mortgage companies, with credit card companies, and if we're in a partnership with our business partner or with our life partner. So it's about those kind of financial relationships, the giving and receiving, the exchange of money between you and another person. So it's a time to really recognize that there is a generosity that springs both ways. And if you want more to come to you, then you have to give more. So if we translate that a bit, it may mean that you have to give some ground in order to get a better money flow or to get more of what you need to survive, to give you substance. And we could, as I said, just look at it and say, well, other people are likely to be more generous to you with money, with possessions, with property, with joint assets. There is that picture that things are looking a little bit rosy. But remember, there's nothing absolute about astrology. It's shades of. And we also have to look at the negatives so that if you are in some kind of argument with someone, you're in that kind of situation and it's over money. Let's think about divorce for a minute. And finances are a part of the divorce settlement. It can mean that things get aggravated and therefore there are real difficulties because the financial aspect of things gets wildly out of control. So I would say that if you are in a discussion over a settlement of any sort and it has finances aspected with it, be fair. Libra, you are fair. You're the sign, aren't you? The scales of justice that Libra holds are saying, balance in all things. Let's be fair. Don't be greedy. But by the same token, recognize when other people are being greedy and stand your ground, whether they're being greedy in terms of their time, their needs, their wants being prioritized in a relationship and yours coming second, or whether we're looking at the finances of the piece and seeing that other people are being greedy and you're not getting your fair share. So that is really, really important. Last thing I want to talk about with Jupiter moving through the 8th, it's about intimacy. And it is so important to feel that sense of intimacy in a relationship so that that person, you're really open to that person, they're open to you, and there is a throughway traffic, so to speak, in terms of intimacy. And of course, with Jupiter there, it's offering you the opportunity to find intimacy and to grow intimacy in your relationship or in your life generally. It can be the beginning of a relationship in which intimacy is all important. If we come to Scorpio, well, Jupiter is in your opposite side. So it is moving through the area of relationships. And it's good. I mean, if I'm working with a client, I often look at, the client would like to know, when are things going to improve my love life? Is anything going to happen? Well, if there's a good sign, a general sign, it's when Jupiter comes to the seventh house, to the descendant point, and moves through the seventh house. So we can see that the climate in which relationships are set is good. It's growth oriented, it's expansive, but so too is it open to inflation. So that if you've got difficulties with a relationship, they might have to get more difficult before they get better. But by and large, a Jupiter transit of your seventh house is going to introduce good people into your life. You're going to feel you've got good people around you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to marry someone, but it might. But just having someone in your life, a guru figure, for instance, one who opens your eyes to possibilities, to educates you in some regard, who makes your life richer. Those are the kind of people you're going to meet as Jupiter moves through your seventh house. There's also an aspect of Jupiter I haven't mentioned yet, but it's part of Jupiter in myth. There's a bit of an unfaithful deity. Jupiter liked what he wanted. He wasn't going to sacrifice anything. He was going to get it. And you can sometimes find either you sort of see the field opening in terms of, oh, I really like that person. And yet you are in an established relationship, whether it's good or it's bad or it's indifferent. Someone has caught your eye and you're tempted to stray. Well, I'm not here to make a judgment. It happens all the time. And maybe that person is the person you're meant to be with. We can't be sure. But so too can it happen in reverse, so that your partner can stray. And your partner can be looking outside the marriage or the relationship for something better. Is that a warning signal? Well, I am the warning signal. I'm telling you, Jupiter coming through your seventh house is saying, protect and provide, which is what Jupiter does too. Make sure that your relationship is everything your partner would want it to be, and you are everything to your partner that he or she would want you to be. So it's a time to really put relationships under the microscope, the astro microscope, and really start to look at your role within a relationship, how that can be improved. Because sometimes we can't make our partner behave better, or we can't make our partner do what we want that partner to do, but we can do something ourselves which inspires it. So yes, it's a great period for relationships per se. And if you're looking for backers, someone to back your business, for instance, with finance or their expertise, then you're going to find it with Jupiter going through the seventh house. And people to appreciate you. I talked to, I think it was Gemini, about when Jupiter is moving through your 12th house, where's all the applause gone? Why is nobody cheerleading you? Why, although you're doing this brilliant stuff, why is no one patting you on the back? Well, when Jupiter's going through your 7th house, that's the reverse. People will acknowledge your brilliance. They'll acknowledge you as a person. And that, of course, in turn, makes you feel really great about yourself. But remember, always the other side of Jupiter is excess, is inflation, the inflation of problems, the inflation of difficulties. So be on your guard for that and work with Jupiter, to work with all the planets, good and bad. So now if we come to Sagittarius, we have Jupiter moving through your 6th house. And the 6th house is another gray area. A lot of people get stumped with the 6th house. What does it mean? Health, work? I don't understand how those two things are connected. Well, they are connected because in the 6th house is where we do the work of life, really, where the living goes on. And when we think about our life and our daily lives in particular, what keeps all that functioning? Well, we work in order to be able to pay for everything. We also need to be fit and well so that we can function and our lives can function. So all sorts of things in this sixth house are about getting things to function, the infrastructure. And it's also about service, so that often in the sixth house, we are drawn to performing a service for other people. And of course, in turn, when we do that, we feel good because other people have benefited from our advice, our help, our wisdom, whatever it may be. And with Jupiter there, it's like really getting that, on stilts. We want to be acknowledged for the service that we do for others. And maybe also it's the idea of finding that purpose, that Jupiter presents opportunities to you for finding your life purpose, but also of finding purpose in what you do. Remember, that's a two-way street. Yes, of course, one would hope that health improves, health and fitness levels. Certainly with Jupiter there, it's your signal to say, you know what? I've got to get healthier, fitter, better, stronger. And with that kind of promotion, with Jupiter behind you, you will succeed. This is not to say that all by itself, better conditions occur in your existing health situation. It can, but I'd rather put the onus on you to see about improving it yourself, because that way we become active and not passive. That way we know we've done our best. Whereas if we're just waiting for Jupiter to provide and nothing happens, we get disappointed. So always work with what you've got. And in this case, Jupiter through the sixth house is helping you in all sorts of ways to find more fulfillment in life, to make your life work better, to find purpose in what you do. And often mentally, when we feel that we have purpose and we feel that we do good things, it does marvelous things for our health anyway. And so we do have health improvements, but it's bound up really with that Jupiter sense of, expanding your own circumstances as opposed to just simply waiting for it to happen. The other thing that I think of about Jupiter in the sixth, we talk about work. In many ways, your career is more a 10th house matter. When we look at the sixth house, it's more about your workplace. So we could say straight off the bat, your workplace is going to expand. Now, does that mean lots more people coming into the workplace? Or does it mean a bigger workplace? Or does it mean jollier conditions in your workplace? Well, it can mean all of those things. But again, maybe just consciously thinking about that and bringing it into the workplace, bringing Jupiter into your workspace is what promotes Jupiter to produce opportunity and growth. Okay, we now move to Capricorn. So for you, Jupiter is moving into the fifth house. Now, the fifth house is the most creative area of the horoscope. It's where we find your inner child. And we've all got an inner child. We've, of course, got our childhood memories, and we all hopefully remember being a child and how we felt when we were a child at different parts of our childhood, at different experiences, different periods of our life. But often when we talk about the inner child, we're thinking about that kind of innocence, aren't we? We're talking about something that isn't cluttered with expectation or, what we've acquired and learned. It's the raw, unique self in there, this little self, if you like, that knows how it feels and responds through the feelings. It's that great creative center, so that when Jupiter passes through our fifth house, we can become super creative. I always have to kind of phrase this in a different way, because sometimes when I talk to my clients about creativity, they say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not creative at all. No, I'm not. But then I find out that, yes, they're cooking madly. Their home becomes this area full of creative decorations. They are very good with finances. They think of all sorts of creative solutions. My goodness, it's endless how you can be creative. So your creativity will expand. And while this might mean your ability to get to develop something in the way of an artistic or creative venture, it might well do that, so that you become a star. While Jupiter is moving through your 5th house, the spotlight comes right on you and says, this is your moment in the sun, or your moment in Jupiter, if you like. So that the aspect of performance, of being able to stand in the spotlight, is what Jupiter is encouraging and bringing opportunities to you to do just that. Of course, not only is this a creative area of the horoscope, it is a pro-creative area. So you can produce children and offspring during the time Jupiter is moving through your 5th house. You have babies, or it may be that you have grandbabies, so that you become a grandparent. Family is expanding through children, but it's also that you find expansion, or you feel you're in the spotlight because of your children. So maybe something happens to one of your children, and that puts you in the spotlight. Do they get married? Do they have a great professional move, something that brings you into the spotlight with them? And certainly, I think when our children do well and our children are happy, my goodness, we're happy too. So there are all sorts of reasons why a transit of Jupiter to the 5th house can be really, really wonderful and very self-affirming. Is there a bad side to it? Yes, of course, there's always a bad side. So things get out of control. And so that, something that you feel of as a creative endeavor, or that you put your heart and soul in, it's kind of running away from you. It's no longer containable. And you're piling too much into it to the detriment of yourself. Remember, as much as Jupiter gives, it can also destroy through doing too much of it. And so I mentioned a little earlier, you can have too much of a good thing, and you can have too much of a good thing even with Jupiter in this 5th house. So if we come to Aquarius now, Jupiter is moving through, or has come to the point of the 4th house. It's the very base of your horoscope. It's the roots of life. It's your family who begat you, your ancestors. And it is the foundations of the future. And I think that that's the phrase I want you to stick with when you think about, what does Jupiter moving through my 4th house mean? What, as an Aquarius, does Jupiter in Taurus mean? It means the foundations of the future are expanding. Opportunities that represent your future are to be found while Jupiter is moving through the 4th house. But let's also remember that you may be creating those opportunities. Remember, nothing happens really on its own. We want to be part and parcel of what the astrology is guiding us to understand. We want to get involved with it. On a very material level, we can look at a bigger and better home. We could look at adding a conservatory or another, roof, going into the roof, creating a new environment in there. We can look at moving to a bigger and better home. And we can look at adding to our family, whether that means adding in the way of bringing in members of the family through marriage or through birth. And we can also look at the kind of joy to be found within family, so that there are joyous moments to be found in the family circle. And we really love that. When we have happy families, then everything is great. And when we don't have happy families, somehow nothing is right with the world. So what Jupiter also offers is the ability really to find consensus and joy if there has been, let's say, a rift or there have been difficulties within the family and it's made life very hard in the family, Jupiter brings a much more exuberant atmosphere to home life, to the family. And of course, when we feel happy and when we feel optimistic and positive, my goodness, good things happen. You know, as I say, change ourselves and then change will happen. You know, sometimes it's that way. Well, more often than not, it's that way round, rather than the cosmos just throwing things at you and giving you rewards. Somehow we have to be open to all of that. Now, could there be a downside to Jupiter in the fourth house? Of course there could. And it means that things to do with home and family are running away from you. So you've got situations, whether they're financially based, like a mortgage that you can't afford anymore, or you've got escalating problems with the home itself. There are difficulties with that in the home, whether it's damp or there's something else that's going on. It's expensive, it's going to cost more. And also when we think about family and, our roots of life, are situations getting out of control there? Or they need to be stopped. If a rift is forming and Jupiter is in there, instead of healing the rift, it's expanding it and growing it. Only you can know what you can do to prevent that or to cut it down to size. But that is certainly something to remember about Jupiter through the fourth house. Coming back to the foundations of the future, the steps you take, the things you put in place in these next 12 months while Jupiter moves through the base of your chart are the foundations of things to come, of the success to come to you further down the line. And that also needs thinking about. And sometimes we get a bit disillusioned, don't we? We're doing a lot of hard work. We're trying very hard to put things in place. And it seems like nothing's happening. But if we put those foundation stones in at this time, they're going to grow. We will have growth. What we may need more of is patience. So coming now to Pisces. So Pisces, for you, we're looking at Jupiter in the third house. And the third house, being one of those seeking houses, again, has a lot to do with knowledge and information. So with Jupiter coming to this area, you just probably instinctively get a feeling like, I just want to know more about my world, but not necessarily the world beyond, whether we're talking about the spiritual world or the world beyond your country or your county, but your immediate world. What's going on in your immediate environment that provides that sense of Jupiter joy and expansion? What can you learn about where you live and your surroundings? It's also about knowledge in the sense of what's immediately important. Somehow in the ninth house with knowledge, it can be a little rarefied, a little airy-fairy. We're in the world of academia when we get into the ninth house. So it's a lot of philosophizing and all of that. But when we're in the third house, it's about how do things work? What happens if I do that and where does that lead? Or what's happened because that's happened? What's the immediate effect on me? What's the immediate result of what I'm learning and what I'm acquiring? You want things to have a quick effect. You don't want to have to go all the way around the houses to get there. So any courses you may do to expand your knowledge are going to be short courses. They're short-term, weekend courses, 12-week courses. They're going to be things that will expand your knowledge and your skills, but they're not going to take you years to go through. And of course, there's your life experience, and that a lot of things that expand your life are going to be found close to home. They're not in, distant countries or distant places. But it's an opportunity, given Jupiter loves to travel, to get to know your area, wherever you live, whether you're walking through it, whether you're biking through it, whether you're taking the car, the train, whatever. Get to know your area, because there will be undiscovered treasures in your area, because Jupiter is going to bring you a gift, and it's closer to home than you think. I think, too, it's about expanding your mindset. I say endlessly, how you think about a situation, or how you think about yourself, colors outcomes. How you look at something is how it is, or how it's going to work out. So if you expand your mindset and you look at a bigger picture, or you take a different perspective, a different route, a situation will look different, you will feel different, and therefore outcomes are different. So I think Jupiter, during its journey through the third house, is really encouraging you to get bigger than the situation, always, to look at things from a bigger perspective. And so your mindset grows and you see things in a different way, and therefore you get different outcomes. Remember, how you think about it is how it turns out. And if you've got Jupiter in this area, it is largely about thinking positively and doing the best thing and doing things that are growth oriented in the best of ways, rather than anything that could be negative. Sometimes this house has to do with your siblings as well, but I also broaden that out to friends who you may feel are like brothers and sisters to you. And so there's a lot to be gained from sort of being with those people who we feel that sense of a kindred spirit as well. And this is conducive to growth. And again, if you want to grow your relationship with a sibling or someone who feels like a sibling, then the time to do it is when Jupiter is moving through your third house. Last but not least, our platform is in the third house. And these days, we're all social media conscious, aren't we? Most of us have a page somewhere, or a TikTok, or whatever we use. So Jupiter here really expands your presence on that kind of social media stage, or the YouTube stage, or whatever you may like to think about it. And it's this idea of getting your voice heard. Jupiter is going to give you a big voice. And how good is that when we can reach more people and we feel that the messages that we have to give are being received? It's quite an activist area, that third house, by the way, Pisces. So don't be surprised if you join some kind of activist group. Not necessarily, what I mean is, something that does good and wants good for the rest of the planet, or whatever it is, because the activist within is often stirred when we've got Jupiter going through the third house. It's like that spirit of adventure, the spirit of all those good things knows no bounds, let's put it that way. So last sign of all, Aries. I have left you to last. Now, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so we like to kick things off. We like to be first in the queue, but you're having your go at being last in line. But with Jupiter in your second house, that's absolutely not the case at all. Now, through much of 2020, parts of 2022, the early part of 2023, until Jupiter moves into Taurus, Jupiter was in your sign of Aries. And so that is a time of growth. This is a time when you come into your power. So in a way, it's all the things you've done before that have allowed things to come good when Jupiter is in your sign. And hopefully, as you're listening to me now, those of you with Aries rising, Jupiter has been in the first house. Those of you who are Aries, looking at it from your solar chart, it's the first house. So you have come into your power. You have recognized where your strengths lie. You've been able to exert your charisma. You've been able to exert your influence on things. You may have felt that you've got around more. More people have noticed you. You had more interactions with other people. You felt a sense of everything expanding in your life. Now, maybe too, you can be honest and say, you know what, I did get a bit too big for my boots on this occasion. I overstepped the mark. somebody didn't like the way I said something, or somebody didn't like what I did. Because with Jupiter, sometimes we want to really follow our desires and ambitions, and sometimes that means we get a little impervious as to what we're doing to other people. So you may have made a few enemies during the time that Jupiter was in Aries. But let's talk about the things that have happened to you, the opportunities to shine, the opportunities to grow, both as a person and anything else you may have chosen to grow that has your personal stamp on it. You may have seen rich rewards. So now with Jupiter moving into the second house, this is an area of material assets. It is an area of finance. It's about your self-worth. And, sometimes these things are all interlinked. It's a chicken and egg situation. Is it that we feel full of self-worth when someone pays us a lot of money for what we do? We suddenly think, oh, I'm worth that fine figure. Yes, that's me. Or is it the other way around? And when we get a sense of our personal value or the value we offer other people, somehow that goes out through the ether and people say, we better pay this person a little more money. It's a chicken and egg situation. But you can increase your assets with Jupiter going through the second house. So if you are financially savvy and you want to start investing, putting your money in something, it's a good time because your money will grow. You can invest in yourself, can't you? If you've got talents and ideas that you believe can go far, then Jupiter is encouraging you to back yourself. Whether that does mean financially backing yourself or whether it means doing all sorts of other things that get to promote what you want to have grow in terms of your material world and your self-value. But let's not forget that other side of Jupiter, which is inflation. And if you've got a problem with finance, as Jupiter comes into your second house, and you can already see that the outgoings are exceeding incomings, and you're looking at interest rate rises, you're thinking about that credit card debt, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, I need a miracle here. I need something to come out of thin air and help me pay these bills. It is unlikely that something is going to come out of thin air. And even if it does, you have to act first. Be responsible, Aries. If you've got a rapidly escalating financial difficulty, stop it immediately. No matter what it takes, no matter what it means, bring it to a halt. Jupiter will kick in so that as long as you've tackled the problem, then Jupiter can work its opportunistic best and bring you opportunities to grow again and to recover. But if you do nothing, then you will find yourself in one terrible pickle because you haven't stopped it when you could. I don't want to pour cold water on your hopes and wishes. That would be the wrong thing. But it's all things in moderation with Jupiter. You have the opportunity to make money. You have the opportunity to invest in your talents, to invest in your future. Then look at that and work out how you can do this safely. Jupiter's going to kick in at some point. It's going to bring you some form of abundance, but it'll be really, really good if you kickstart that process. And let's not forget too that whole idea of self-worth, of really knowing that you are full of value, that's going to answer a lot of problems. Sometimes when people don't like us, or when something's happened in a situation, a relationship, and we're feeling pretty bad about ourselves because we're not getting all the kind of warmth and recognition that we need to feel good about ourselves, then it has to start with what is good about ourselves. What is it that we know absolutely is good about us? Is it that we are kind? Is it that we are generous? Is it that we have a particular talent? Whatever it is, embrace that and see it as such a God-given asset. Remember, this is the area of assets. Treasure it, build on it, feel it, because that will help you grow full of good value. And in response to that, people will treat you as that person of value. So we have gone all the way around those 12 houses, those 12 signs. And I hope it's easy for you to understand where Jupiter will be. As I said, you can take it from 2 points of view, from your sun sign and from where you know exactly where Jupiter is. And so it's my kind of concluding time. And, you know, I always think about these things ahead of time, and especially in relationship to what I've been talking about on this occasion, Jupiter in Taurus. And I thought about this phrase, be careful what you wish for. And that is such a Jupiter phrase, isn't it? Because we can want something, we can set things in motion, we can really push the boat out for what we want, and we can wish it and want it, try to manifest it, and guess what? When we get it, it destroys us. It's not really what we really wanted. So why am I bringing this up, and, you know, what can we do about it? But let me just set this in the context of what's going on at this time as you listen to me. And we look at Jupiter just entering Taurus. We've got that Mars-Pluto opposition squaring Jupiter. So, you know, I've talked about this as being a great opportunity, but it is creative as well as destructive because of Pluto's participation in that three-pronged formation. So we have to be careful what we wish for. Now, this doesn't mean we don't have hopes. It doesn't mean we don't have ambitions. It doesn't mean we don't have dreams. It doesn't mean we should not go towards fulfilling our dreams and our ambitions and our desires. Of course we should. But what we need to do is consider whether it's right for us. And, you know, in my last video, I talked about asking yourself, is it true? Is it right? Is it honorable? Is it me? And so asking yourself this question in reference to the idea of going for what you want to have in your life. This question is about, is it right for me? And if you do that in a certain way, the answer will come. And I think, too, the idea of manifestation, there's a lot of talk about manifestation. There are countless organizations and manifestation mentors all over the world. And the idea behind that is a good one, is that if we want things to happen in our life, we have to be able to manifest them in certain ways. But the thing is, that's not a magic potion. It's in fact probably a poison chalice, because at some point all that manifestation comes to a halt, and you then have to rethink everything. And this same idea in this short phrase, be careful what you wish for, is that in as much as you go out to manifest what you want, it has to be done with humility. It can never be just a stream of wanting and desiring and manifesting and going for it. The handmaid to that really is humility. Is this worthy of me? Is this what is meant for me? Is this right for me? And just periodically asking yourself those questions will keep you on the straight and narrow. It will prevent you from going from growth, success, happiness, and fulfillment to those things destroying you by ways where it has exceeded the amount it is supposed to do. So that really is my conclusion, really, in terms of, well, I suppose it's all things. You can have too much of a good thing. You have to know where the boundaries come. You have to also be humble. And all of those good things come to us in due course. So thank you for listening, everybody. I hope you got a lot out of this video, and I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time. Bye for now.